Malchus. It's from Maimer from Tavshin Yud Beis, as many of the Mamorim from the Dvar Malchus this year are from Tavshin Yud Beis. As it fits into the Kviyas, I think that's the reason why they did it from Tavshin Yud Beis. Okay. So in our Parsha, one of the things it speaks about is the idea of the Nesachim. And in the Nesachim, we have the relationship of the Nesachim that were poured by the Karbonis, and there's different halachas of the Nesachim, if they applied in the Midbar, if they didn't apply in the Midbar, or in what type of way they applied in the Midbar. We're going to touch upon that over here in this Maimer a little bit. When you will arrive, when you'll come to the land of where you settled, and you will make a fire offering. In other words, you will offer a carbon to Hashem. Rashi explains that the making of a fire that the pasuk is talking about over here, the making the fire offering, the making the karbonos over here in this pasuk is not the mitzvah of karbonos, but rather it is relating something having to do to the next part. When you will come, it'll arise on your heart. You will consider, you will decide to make a fire offering to Hashem, to make a carbon. So then, the one that will offer up the carbon. And what will you do? You will bring the nesachim, the wine libations that you pour upon by the carbon. That is the command of the nesachim. This means that the command over here is about the mitzvah of nesachim, the mitzvah of bringing the wine libations by the karbonos. And therefore, the order of the pasuk is as follows: carbon, when you offer a carbon. So then the Torah says, it's an obligation to bring nesachim. Now the question is, when is this? So the Torah begins with a certain statement. So therefore, from this we derive line 7, the obligation of bringing the wine libations. It's only when you will come to the land of where you are settled, where you are inhabiting, as opposed to in the wilderness. When the Eden were in the desert, about the individual opinions about this concerning the difference between the nesachim in the Midbar versus the nesachim in Eretz Yisrael. And here the Rebbe is going to enumerate different opinions. In the Midbar, in the Stav of nesachim klal, that there's an opinion that says that they weren't at all commanded to bring nesachim in the Midbar. That's one opinion. Another opinion is, or there's another opinion that there was no obligation to bring the nesachim together with the carbon. In other words, it was a separate mitzvah, a separate choice of bringing wine libations. It wasn't along with the carbon. I order in the midbar or in the midbar we only brought the nesachim by the tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein arboim, but all the rest of the karbanos there was no chiyuv nesachim. Another opinion is shechiyuv nesachim hayirak bekarbanos sibur v'lay bekarbanos yachid, that the obligation to bring the nesachim was only in the public karbanos, the communal karbanos, like the tamid and the karbanos musafim and the different karbanos that were brought for a different yom tovim and so on, but not in private karbanos. If I, as a private person, brought a karnoila or a chatas or a shlamim, there was no nesach. So that is why, for whichever opinion you're following, that is why the pasuk that talks about nesachim begins with the words kisavayu el eretz mosboteicham. V'hainu, this comes to teach us the obligation of nesachim and all the karbanos, Eretz Yisrael, Dafka specifically in Eretz Yisrael. And only after inheriting Eretz Yisrael and settling Eretz Yisrael. How do we know that it's only after all of that? It doesn't say just when you will come to the land. It says when you will come to the land where you are settled. So we see that settling the land is when the Nesachim mitzvah applies in its fullest measure. The Rebbe asked, what's the connection between the idea of the Nesachim to the land of your settlement specifically? The problem is that to be able to understand this, you have to first preface the difference in Karbonis and the Nesachim. Hainu ha'hefresh bein shnei ha'inyonim sheba'karbonis guf, for the difference between the two items that's to be found in Karbonis itself. Karbonis has two parts to them. A Karbonis shebahem, there's the carbon aspect where we bring the animal, for example, or some other type of carbon, and the idea of the Nesachim that's brought along with the Nesachim, that's brought along with the Karbonis, but really the two parts, two aspects, two components of the Karbonis. By understanding the difference between Karbonis and Nesachim, Shalpiza Yuvan, according to this, the understanding of this will be understood. The idea of Nesachim is connected with Eretz Mishusechem Dafka, specifically where you come to the land of your inhabitants. So the Rebbe goes on to explain on the top of page Zayin. The idea behind this is the idea of Karbonis is called by the name of fire. That you will make a fire offering to Hashem. Isha Lashon Eish. The word Isha is from the word fire. It says as Karboni Lachmin Ishai, my carbon, my bread for my fire. So we see the association that carbon has with fire. So what is the nature of fire? The idea of fire is its nature, its characteristic is to arise from below to above. Okay, it's like it's not that this is the difference between the element of fire, all the other elements. The mind, water and earth, their nature is to descend. But ruach and the level of air or the level of wind, though its nature is not to go down, still in all, but it doesn't have the nature and the characteristic of going up. The ilu teva as opposed to the nature of fire is lawless lamilus to go upwards. Behind this means the inyan haliyah malmata lamayla commotion into the Dvar gashmim, the idea of the ascent from below to above, the way it's found in physical matters. Areza bisoida eish dafka, specifically in the element of fire. Bezel shakarbonis nikru b'shem eish. That is why there's this association that the sacrifices, the Karbonis are called fire. Because the idea of Karbonis is the ascent and going from below to above. This going from below to above is to be found in all Karbonis. Like it says, like it says, you shall make a fire offering to Hashem, whether it's an oil carbon or zevach. When it says oila oy zevach, so oila is obviously a carbon oila. So the zevach that's placed in contrast and next to oila means something that's not an oila lashem, rather a carbon shlamim. Hainu loida carbon oila shukal lashem, not only a carbon oil. That carbon oil is entirely consumed by the Eibishter. So that I can understand why it's that is more obvious that it's halal malmata l'mayla. But the truth is, elegam carbon zevach she'ena kolil, even a carbon zevach, even a shlamim, that is not entirely consumed by the fire. There are parts that are eaten by the kohenim. There are parts that are eaten by the the people that are bringing the karbanis to Israel. Still in all, who Isha La Hashem, it's a fire offering for Hashem, Shu Inyan Aliyah, it's the level of Aliyah. That's why it says in the Pasuk, Vasisem Isha La Hashem, Oiloi Zevach. You will make an Isha to Hashem, either an Oila or a Zevach, so that even the Zevach, even the Shlamim carbon, is also considered an idea of fire. It's also considered something that rises up from below to above. So now he goes on, line 17. Just like the karbanos themselves are called by the name of fire, like it says, you will make an isha. So to the level above, that over there, the karbanos reach. It's also called fire. Like it says, Lachmi li ishai, my bread for my fire, Eishali, my fire. Beforehand, we brought the association from this pasuk, Lachmi li ishai, that the bread is the level of fire. But if you are more exact in this pasuk, it says, Lachmi, my bread, to my fire. So in other words, that the karbanos is going up to a level of Hashem's fire. So he's saying, who is my fire? What is this level that the karbanos go up to? My fire is going on the malachim in general, especially on the srafim shem tamid betnuah. They're constantly in a movement of ascent, in a movement of going upwards. And now he's going to explain a little bit more at length, why do I say that the srafim are constantly in a movement of going upwards, and he's going to explain about malachim, either they stand still or they're moving, and how to reconcile the two. Line 23. The malachim themselves are called standing, like it's known in the explanation of the pasuk. That the Navi was told, I'm going to make you I'm going to make you travelers amongst these standards. Though these that are standing still, the Navi was told, I will make you traveling amongst them. So we know that he was being spoken about in the presence of Malachim, and referring to the ones that are standing, is talking about the Malachim. So he's going to go on to explain this idea, standing, going upwards, what's going on. He says in line 25, yes, look at Madregas, there are different levels. The Malachim that are called Chayis, a level that's lower than the Srafim, they are in a state of rushing towards Hashem and pulling back. Like it says in the verse, that the Chayis are rushing and returning, top of page Ches. On the other hand, Srafim are in a state of standing, like it says over in the voice Yeshaya, Srafim it says the Srafim are standing above him. So the Rebbe is going to explain why are Srafim standing versus the Chayis are rushing to and fro. The idea behind this is the Chayis and Ba'olam HaYetzirah. The Malachim that are called Chayis are in the world of Yetzirah. Just Baruch over there in the world of Yetzirah, it shines the attributes of the Ein Sof, and the level of the intellect that shines in Yetzirah. It's only from the level of the intellect that is only connected with the midos, not from the level of the intellect, the way they are in their essential state. We know that the spheres of Atzilus expand into the four worlds. And we say that Chachma Atzilus shines throughout Atzilus. Bina of Atzilus shines throughout Bria, as we will talk about soon. The Midas of Atzilus, they nest and shine in the world of Yetzirah. And Malchus, reaches to Asi. So therefore, the world of Yetzirah is illuminated by and enlivened and vitalized by and energized by the levels of the emotion. And their only connection with intellect is the intellect that has to do with emotions. Based on that the world of Yetzirah is primarily the level of the midos of Hashem. That's what shines into the world of Yetzirah. It's understood why the Chayes who dwell in the world of Yetzirah is about Rotzi v'Shoiva as well. So he says, line 7, since the idea of emotions is the idea of excitement, that's the idea of changes, that's passion and excitement, and that's what it means being emotional. Not being emotional, be settled. A person that's emotional, there are highs and lows and so on. Therefore, the Malachim of Chayis are in the world of Yetzirah, that over there shines the midas of the Ein Sof. There are the changes of going to and fro, of going towards rushing and returning. The Einam of Chinas Amida, they're not in a way of standing still. But the Srafim we mentioned before are higher than the Malachim of Chayis. As opposed to the Srafim, they're in a level of a constant standing still without any change. Since they're in the world of Bria. And the world of Bria, over there it shines the Chabad of the Ein Sof. Essentially, via the level of Bina. Maimer, like the Tikkun Zohar says, the supernal mother, in other words, Bina Vatzilis, nests in the world of the throne of the chair, meaning the world of Bria. So since intellect is shining in the world of Bria, therefore they're constantly in a state of standing still. Hainush and Nisrafim, they are burning up because they are expiring machmas habitl shalahem, because of their state of bitl. They are so nullified, and the level of amida indicates the level of bitl. The highest, the apex of davening, the highest point in davening is Shemoneh Esrei. Shemoneh Esrei is also known as amida because we stand still in the way of total bitl. So now the Rebbe asks, we just now identified the difference between the Srafim and the Chayes. The Chayes are constantly moving to and fro because of the excitement. The Srafim, because of their bittul, as a result of the Chabad, they are in a way of Amid. But we find also in the Vus Yecheskel that the Srafim, that even the Chayes have a state of Amid. It says in line 15, the fact that we find also by Malachim called Chayes. It says when they stand, their wings soften and weaken. In the midazu, this revelation, this is a result not of their natural state, but there's a level where it will shine into them from a level that's beyond the firmament. The firmament, just like our physical firmament covers us over, so too there's the rakia over the chayes that it speaks about over there in the Vos Yecheskel. And above, when a revelation comes from above that level, then they reach a level of Amida as well. Said in line 18, when it shines to the Chayes, a ray from the world of Bria, that over there it shines the Chabad of the Ein Sof. So just like the Srafim are always in a state of Amida. Why? Because they are in the world of Bria, where the Chabad of Ein Sof is always there. When the Chayes of the Eibishter, when the Malachim called Chayes, despite being Yitzirah, become influenced by and affected by a revelation from higher in the world, from the Bina, and the level of Bria, which has a Chabad in it, So then, Azai Nasagam Behem Inyan Amida. So then, also in the Chayis, that naturally they're in a state of Rotzi V'Shoiv, they now get the state of Ba'amdam. They're now standing still. But the Chayis on their own, when there isn't that Hamshacha from Emal Rakiyam, even She'enam Tzoyim Ba'olim Shaboy Me'iris Chachma Binu V'das. Plain Sof Baruch Hu, since they do not find themselves in the world, that over there it shines. The Chabad of the infinite light of Hashem, Einam Kinas Amidah. They are not the Chayis in a state of Amidah, Ela Yesh. Bohem Ashinuyim, the Rotzi V'Shoiv, top of page test, they have the changes of Rotzi V'Shoiv. So going back to the original topic, we were saying that not only is the carbon itself a level of fire, but it goes up to the level of my fire. What is the level of my fire? We said that's going on the Malachim, on the Sraf. So now he's going to conclude that idea. That's what it says, my bread to my fire. The Koyal Malachim Echlal, my fire is referring to the Malachim in general. Ubafrat Allah Srafim, specifically, my fire is referring to the Srafim, Shem Tamid B'chinas Aliyah. They're constantly in a state of ascent. In other words, they're bittul, they're amida, they're burning up. That shows the level of fire as well. Venimtza comes out. Sheklolis in nakarbonis. The general idea of karbona is, hey, nakarbonis atzmam, whether the karbonis themselves, vein amokim she'elav magim karbonis, and both the place where the karbonis reach. U'inyan ha'esh, u'inyan ha'law is the idea of fire. That's the idea of ascent and elevation. Hainu yitziyam megidrei hakelim. It means going out of the definitions and the limitations of vessels. That's the idea of rising up. And this arising is till the level of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's a fire offering to Avaya. What is this level of Avaya that it reaches? The Inyan Shem Avaya, is the idea of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is beyond the world. How do we see that Avaya is beyond the world? That's the idea that Avaya was, is, and will be as one. The nature of the world is divided under the limitations of time. Avaya is past, present, and future all combined. So that's beyond the world. And that's where the carbonas go up. Through elevating and rising up in all the levels until the level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, becomes also the ascent higher than the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. What is that level? This is going up all the way till the mystery and the secret of the Ein Sof. Like the statement is said in the Zohar, that Raz of the Korban, the secret and the mystery and the hidden part of the carbon, Raz of the Ein Sof goes up all the way until the mystery and the secret of the Ein Sof, to the deepest, most levels of the Ein Sof. What does this mean? What does this mean? Does it go up to Shem Havaya? Does it go up higher in the world? Does it go up higher in Shem Havaya? Ein Sof. So he says, it depends. We got to look at it. Is it the carbon or the raz of the carbon? He says, "V'hainu." This means shakarbonis atzmam aliyosam hi ad b'chinas Shem Havaya. Carbonis themselves, they rise up all the way till the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Achaydei haliyah b'chol hamadregis. V'yitziyah mechol gidrei hakelim, through the elevation and descent and all the levels, and going out of all the definitions and limitations of vessels. Nasis aliyah ad raza dein sof. So then it becomes the elevation until the secret and the mystery of the Ein Sof. That's the exact language. The secret of the carbon, the mystery of the carbon, goes up to the secret and mystery of the Ein Sof. The carbon is specifically the secret and the mystery of the carbon. In other words, the really deep, mysterious part of it. After it goes up to all the way Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, now you're getting with the mystery and the secret of the carbon. Now that's Oilad Rosa in Ein Sof. It goes up all the way to the mystery and the secret of the Ein Sof. Let us learn one more part over here, because just to see the contrast. So essentially, we spoke about Karbonos being the elevation and ascent from below to above. Now let's talk about the Nesachim. The Nesachim is pouring. It's just the opposite. It's about going from above down below. Ois Gimel, line 20. The idea of the libations that's in the Karbonos. Specifically, the Amshacha that goes down below. That's the opposite of Karbonos. That the idea is ascending and elevating. The Karbonos is elevation, is to the highest, most levels, till the secret of the Ein Sof. The Ilu Nesachim, as opposed to the libations, to the pouring the wine. The idea is Amshacha Lamata, the drawing down and going down below. And just like in the Karbonos, the rising up was to the highest, most level, the mystery of the Ein Sof. Same thing, the Hamshach of the Nesachim is the lowest level. Hamshachi Lamata Mata B'Yoytzer, the drawing down is very much below. Ad Lamot Ma'Yoytzer Namov, till the lowest, most place. Giselle Shanesachim Shoyim Menaschim Al Gav Mizbeach. That's the idea that the Nesachim, that they would pour upon the Mizbeach. Hayu Yerdim Lashisim, they would descend to these little holes in the ground. Shemuchulalim, they're hollow. V'Yerdim Ad Tahoim, and those holes go down all the way till the below ground, the aquifer, the underground water gathering. We know that the level of the Tahoim is the lowest part, the lowest place. It's the location of the lower waters. That they descended through the statement when the Eibishter said, let there be a firmament, there became this division and the lowering of the waters. These are medrash that gets brought on. The medrash initially, the world was mixed water and water, meaning the upper waters with the lower waters. Top of page U. By day, through the statement, there should be the firmament within the water. The upper waters went up above, and the lower waters descended all the way to the Tahoim. So that's how low the Nesachim go to. It goes all the way down to the lowest level of the lowest waters. That's the Nesachim that descended all the way to the Tahoim. It's the idea of the Amshacha that goes very much below. Not only are the Nesachim not about going up from below to above, they're not even remaining where they are. Okay, they're not going above, but not going below. No. They are drawn down below, and even more so. These savings are even more so. Not only is being drawn down to a place that has some type of comparison to the place that is higher than it, it's being drawn down to the lowest most place, the place of the lower waters. Concerning this, it says, the lower waters are crying, we want to be before the king, like it was before the separation, where the lower waters was mixed with the higher waters and being in the presence of the Eibishter. So we see how low the lower waters is, that they're crying about their distance. If they wouldn't be so far, they wouldn't be crying about their distance. Obviously, they're as far as it could be. And to there, that's where the Nesachim descend. So what we see from this is the polar opposite between Karbonos and Nesachim. Karbonos is about going up to the highest most place. Nesachim is about going down to the lowest most place. Any questions?